After my brother-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law swore never to remarry. My mother-in-law, feeling sorry for her, wanted my husband to take her as his secondary wife. I slammed my teacup to the ground and stormed off in a rage. That night my husband hugged me from behind. "Juaner, don't be angry. In this life you are my only wife." Later my father fell gravely ill and I rushed back to Lee County in a hurry. When I returned to the mansion again, the doorways were decorated with lanterns and colored streamers, brimming with joy and celebration. And my husband, dressed in a bright red wedding robe, was smiling broadly as he mingled with his colleagues. But the moment he saw me, the color drained completely from his face. My elder brother sent word that father's condition was critical. Panicked, I immediately sent for a carriage to be prepared. Before leaving, I left word with the servants. Once my husband had finished his official duties, he should come to Lee County as soon as possible. But I waited day after day in Lee County. Not once did Lu Henyun show up until father breathed his last. I knelt vigil by father's spirit tablet for a whole day and night, refusing to eat or drink anything. My elder brother couldn't bear to watch me waste away. He forcefully pulled me up and made me eat a bowl of thin congee. Huan Henyun is an imperial official, favored and trusted by His Majesty. This is an extraordinary honor. He couldn't come to pay his respects to father. Surely the emperor had entrusted him with more pressing matters. I don't blame him, and you shouldn't let this drive a wedge between you either. When you go back you must live well with him. Do you understand? His words stirred a faint bitterness in my heart, but I nodded anyway. Father had just passed away, and already some people in the clan were eyeing his properties greedily. These were trying times for the Jiang family as we struggled to rebuild and thrive. I couldn't afford to be a burden to my brother. Once the 7th day of father's mourning period was over, my elder brother urged me to return to the capital. Despite my overwhelming reluctance, I boarded the carriage bound for the capital. The journey was bumpy and my eyelids twitched constantly as if some ill omen loomed ahead. I told the coachman to hurry. Thus, the 3-day journey was shortened by half. As soon as we entered the city gate, the carriage came to a halt. My maid, Ling Long, lifted the curtain and a long wedding procession blocked our path. All we could see was the bridegroom riding on a tall steed moving forward slowly. She turned back to me, hesitating. "Miss, should this servant go down and ask them to make way?" I pulled her back. "No need. Today is their joyous occasion, we shouldn't spoil their mood." Ling Long nodded in agreement. In the next moment, the entire capital resounded with the continuous crackle of firecrackers and the cheerful blare of Swona horns. What a grand spectacle it was. I lifted the carriage curtain and an envious look crept onto my face. At first, my mother-in-law had looked down on me for being the daughter of a merchant, and had only agreed to let Yuan take me as his concubine. But the women of the Jiang family would rather remain widows all their lives than be anyone's secondary wife. I had no choice but to endure the pain of keeping my distance from Yuan. Yet Yuan refused to let me go, vowing that he would never marry anyone but me. Later, thanks to Yuan's hunger strike in protest and my brother-in-law's mediation, my mother-in-law finally relented. On the day he married me, there was no lavish dowry stretching for miles, just a string of firecrackers to welcome me through the city gates and into the mansion. Back then my heart had been filled with nothing but joy. Now thinking about it, a tinge of regret lingered inevitably. I sighed softly. I wonder which young lady is so fortunate. An hour later, Ling Long gently shook my arm, rousing me from my thoughts. "Miss, we've arrived at the mansion, but..." Her face was grim and she looked as if she had something difficult to say. Before I could ask what was wrong, Ling Long seemed to make up her mind. She gritted her teeth and said, "Miss, see for yourself." She flung the carriage curtain wide open, and a huge red character "Double Happiness" met my eyes directly. I couldn't help but gasp, my breath catching in my throat. My steps faltered as I climbed down from the carriage and I almost stumbled and fell to the ground. Ling Long reacted quickly, supporting me. "Miss." Once I steadied myself, I dug my nails into my palms fiercely, forcing myself to stay calm. It might not be a Yuan. Perhaps mother-in-law had found a good match for sister-in-law, but... My heart trembled violently as I walked step by step toward the Lu mansion. The servants greeting guests at the gate widened their eyes in shock when they saw me. "Young mistress." The panic on their faces was plain to see. Something inside me felt as if it had collapsed with a resounding crash. I struggled to hold back the surging sorrow in my heart, forcing a bitter smile. So you still recognize me as your young mistress. Yet you didn't even bother to inform me when the mansion was holding a wedding feast. Truly, you don't take me seriously at all. The servants glanced at each other, looking utterly at a loss. Finally, one bold servant spoke up first. Today is the day Master marries Mistress Lin. We beg you, young mistress, to please leave for the time being. His words struck me like a bolt of lightning and my mind went completely blank. When I finally regained my senses, my heart ached as if it were being torn apart, thread by thread. Mistress Lin was none other than my late brother-in-law's wife. Months earlier, however, word had come that my brother-in-law had died fighting on the battlefield. Sister-in-law had cried herself unconscious several times over the news. According to the rules, since sister-in-law had no children with her late husband, she should have been sent back to her maiden family to remarry. But when she woke up, she would rather hang herself than take another husband. Mother-in-law, I was born a member of the Liu family, and I shall die as a ghost of the Liu family. I beg you, don't drive me away. Mother-in-law was deeply moved by her words and allowed her to stay in the mansion as her companion. Perhaps sister-in-law was simply too likable. Before long, mother-in-law invited me for tea and casually mentioned that she wanted Lu Hengyin to take Mistress Lin as his secondary wife. At that time I felt nothing but humiliation. I couldn't hold back my anger and slammed my teacup to the ground before storming off in a fit of rage. Tears streamed down my face as I walked away. I even resolved that if Lu Hengyuan really listened to his mother and took another wife, I would definitely part ways with him. But when Lu Hengyuan returned home from court and heard what had happened, he flew into a terrible rage and had a huge quarrel with mother-in-law. That night he came back to our room looking aggrieved as he hugged me tightly. Huan, don't listen to mother's nonsense. In this life you are the only one I acknowledge. You are my one and only wife. Memories struck me like a slap across the face. The more touched I had been back then, the more heartbroken I felt now. I wanted to rush inside and demand an explanation from Lu Hengyun, to ask him if the promise he had made to me on our wedding day, that he would never take a concubine and never betray me, had all been a lie? But when I opened my mouth I found that I couldn't make a single sound. Before long, someone noticed me standing there looking unsteady on my feet. The music and singing gradually died down. Curious glances gathered on me from all around. Someone who knew me spoke up. Why, isn't that Lord Lu's wife? I heard she was indisposed and couldn't make an appearance. How did she suddenly turn up here? His words were enough to make one famous or infamous. The guests at the table didn't even dare to glance at me. And I laughed until tears streamed down my face. What a convenient excuse, indisposed and couldn't make an appearance. Lu Hengyun had truly gone to great lengths to pull off this wedding. I forced down my grief, steadied my trembling legs and walked over to the nearest table. I poured myself a full cup of wine. Today is my husband's wedding day. I've come specially to offer my congratulations. I wish my husband and his fair lady a deep and lasting love, and may they grow old together in happiness. With that, I raised the cup and drained it in one gulp, coughing violently from the harsh liquor burning my throat. Lu Hengyun spun around abruptly, strode toward me in large steps and snatched the wine cup from my hand. You can't hold your liquor. Stop being ridiculous. As he drew near, I saw a mixture of pain and remorse in his eyes. But I didn't want to understand it anymore. I didn't want to try. I took a step back, staring at him, every word sharp and clear. Lu Hengyun, let's divorce. The words hung in the air and a deathly silence fell over the hall. Lu Hengyuan's eyes widened in shock, and the color drained completely from his face. His colleagues couldn't stand by any longer. One of them stepped forward to reproach me. Lady Lu, that's going too far. Since ancient times, what man hasn't had 3 wives and 4 concubines? Why must you embarrass Lord Lu like this in front of everyone? He looked me up and down, his eyes filled with disdain. On such a joyous occasion, look at you, disheveled, dressed in plain white mourning clothes. Anyone who didn't know better would think you're here to mourn the dead. You're such a bad omen. I clutched my chest, my heart throbbing with sharp pain. Digging my nails deeper into my palms, I lifted my head, my eyes red with tears, and snapped, "Shut up. This is between me and him, none of your business." The man choked on his words, flicked his sleeves angrily and sat back down in a huff. Lu Hengyuan's gaze fell on my plain white robe and he froze for a moment. Then he frowned slightly. Huan, how can you be so reckless and disrespectful? This was the first time Lu Hengyuan had ever spoken to me in such a sharp, angry tone. My face turned ashen white as I stared at him in disbelief. When he loved me, my straightforwardness was called sincerity of character. Now that he didn't, it was just unreasonable nonsense. I gazed at Lu Hengyuan for a long time, a flicker of sorrow in my eyes. Then I won't disturb my husband and all you gentlemen's merrymaking any longer. Huan. Footsteps sounded behind me, but they were quickly stopped. Brother Lu, today is your wedding day. If you leave now, what fun will there be? That's right. She's just a woman. If you spoil her too much now, she'll only get more arrogant later. Don't worry, Brother Lu. I've seen women like this plenty of times. All this talk of divorce is just anger. If you ignore her for a few days, she'll soon learn who's the master of this house. Besides, even if you do divorce her, who would want a woman like her, discarded goods that she is? Come. Let's keep drinking. My footsteps paused. Lu Hengyuan's voice drifted clearly into my ears. What you gentlemen say is absolutely true. Allow me to punish myself with a cup of wine. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. My face turned deathly pale and I stumbled, barely able to stand upright. I couldn't help but glance back. Lu Hengyuan had already returned to the banquet table, toasting and laughing with the guests as if nothing had happened. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, as if something inside me had crumbled into dust with a resounding crash. Ling Long hurried after me, catching a whiff of the faint alcohol on my clothes. Her face was a mixture of disbelief and outrage. Miss, did they force you to drink? That's going too far. Seeing that she was about to storm off to defend me, I grabbed her arm and shook my head. Ling Long, let's go. Ling Long looked at me worriedly, swallowing all the angry words she had been about to say. Luckily, the coachman was still waiting. We climbed into the carriage. Ling Long took out a pill and fed it to me, her expression serious. Miss, you're in poor health, you can't touch a drop of alcohol. Never again risk your life for a moment of anger. When I was 7 years old, my brother and I snuck a sip of father's hidden wine. 1 cup was enough to send me teetering on the brink of death's door. After I was saved, we found out that I had been born prematurely, with a congenital heart condition that required extreme care with my diet and rest. Even on our wedding day, when we were supposed to drink the nuptial wine together, I had substituted tea for liquor. But just now, blinded by rage, I had cast all thoughts of my own safety aside. It really wasn't worth it when I thought about it. I managed a bitter smile. Never again. Ling Long seemed to have more to say, but after a long pause all she could manage was, Mississippi, where are we going now? Her question made me freeze for a moment. When I finally came to my senses, a wave of sadness washed over me. Back then, to marry Lu Hengyuan, I had come to this unfamiliar capital city alone, with only Ling Long by my side. Lu Hengyuan was always busy with official duties and couldn't stay with me often. The noble ladies of the capital looked down on me as an outsider from the provinces, snubbing me and plotting against me at every turn. When I poured out my grievances to Lu Hengyuan, he had laughed and pulled me into his arms. Huan doesn't need to deal with those unpleasant people. You only need to have me in your eyes. My face had flushed bright red with embarrassment, and I had pushed his face away. Then wouldn't I die of boredom? Lu Hengyuan had pretended to suddenly realize something, grinning. Is that so? Then I'll work even harder. How about I make you have 2 children in the first year, 3 in the second? The memories came flooding back, sending a chill down my spine. Back then, I had only felt shy and flustered, completely unaware that living on someone else's love and affection meant that I would have nothing left if that love were to vanish. Besides the Lu mansion, I couldn't think of anywhere else to go. After thinking for a moment, I said firmly, let's stay at the Qianlai Inn for now. In any case, I couldn't make any further plans until I had the divorce papers in my hand. By the time we checked into the inn, it was already very late. I had no appetite, so I went upstairs to rest. But lying in bed, I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. I couldn't stop thinking, would Lu Hengyuan touch Mistress Lin tonight? Surely he wouldn't. Right? He had said it was just for show, just to give her a proper status. But then I hated myself for caring. My heart had already been shattered into pieces, and yet I still cared about Lu Hengyuan. As I loathed myself for it, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. My heart throbbed with a dull, aching pain. Then I heard a soft sound coming from the window. I wiped away my tears, sat up straight and said coldly, "Who's there?" In the dimness, a tall, shadowy figure climbed through the window. I shrank back in terror, pulling the hairpin from my hair and clutching it tightly in my hand. The shadow drew closer and closer. I held my breath, my whole body trembling with fear. Then a familiar voice spoke up in the darkness. "Juan Juan. It's me." All the strength drained from my hand in an instant. The hairpin clattered to the floor with a sharp, clear sound. Lu Hengyun pulled me into his arms. "Juan Juan, don't be afraid. I'm sorry. I was late." Tears soaked his robe and my heart was in turmoil. I was both overjoyed that he had come for me, and filled with hatred for the way he had deceived me. After what felt like an eternity, a candle was lit, illuminating the entire room. I regained a shred of my composure, pushing Lu Hengyun away with all my strength. I turned my back to him, refusing to meet his gaze, and said coldly, "On your wedding night, you leave your bride and come to me instead? What for?" Lu Hengyun suddenly felt the warmth of my body disappear from his arms. He froze for a moment, then quickly pulled me back into his embrace. "It's all right, Juan Juan. I was wrong today. I swear I'll never hide anything from you again. Just forgive me this once, okay?" I kept my face cold and said nothing. He tried to coax me. "Whatever you want, jewels, silk dresses, I'll buy them all for you as compensation. Don't be angry with me anymore. If you wear yourself out, it'll break my heart." Break his heart. He knew perfectly well that I could never tolerate sharing a husband with another woman, that I would rather die than be one of two wives. And yet he had married another woman behind my back. And to make matters worse, he had done it while my father was still in mourning. How could it not shatter my heart into a million pieces? A flood of grievance and sorrow welled up inside me. My eyes stung with tears, but I couldn't cry anymore. Lu Hengyun talked and talked, but when he saw that I was still unmoved, a hint of impatience crept into his voice, barely noticeable. "Juan Juan, I left my new wife on our wedding night to come to you to snub my sister-in-law. Doesn't that prove that it's you I love? Stop being unreasonable. Come back to the mansion with me before the others have a chance to laugh at us." His words sent a chill to the bottom of my heart. Before I could think, the words spilled out of my mouth. "I'm not going back with you." Lu Hengyun's eyes darkened and his voice turned stern. "Juan Juan, marrying her was mother's idea. You know perfectly well that you're the only one in my heart, that I have no feelings for her at all. Besides, when brother was still alive, he took on the responsibility of revitalizing our family all by himself, just to make our marriage possible. Now that he's gone, is it so wrong for me to take care of my sister-in-law?" I spun around to glare at him, my heart overflowing with grievance. My voice trembled as I choked out, "There are so many ways to take care of someone. Did you really have to marry her? You promised me." But my words were cut off by his impatient interruption. "Yes. I promised you I would never take a concubine, that you would be my only wife for the rest of my life. So today's wedding was just a formality. No one can ever shake your position as my wife. What more do you want?" My eyes widened in shock and I bit my lips so hard it almost bled. "So you truly think you've done nothing wrong, is that it? You came here to scold me for being unreasonable, for not knowing my place, for throwing a tantrum over nothing?" By the end of my words, I couldn't help but raise my voice, my tone trembling with emotion. How ridiculous. When he had first appeared here, I had actually wavered for a moment. Lu Hengyun stared at me, his face tense. Our eyes locked and an invisible tension crackled in the air between us. We faced off against each other, neither willing to back down. With every passing second, my heart grew colder and colder. After what felt like an eternity, I lowered my head, a bitter, self-mocking smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Lu Hengyun, when I left word for you. Why didn't you come to find me?" Lu Hengyun's gaze softened for a moment and his voice was laced with guilt. "Juan Juan, I wanted to go to you. But mother. She fell ill. She wouldn't let me leave." He looked at me, his eyes filled with helplessness. "You know I'm her only son left. But you still have your elder brother by your side." I let out a cold, mocking laugh. So that was it. Because I had my brother, I didn't need my husband's company. My heart turned to ash as I looked at him, taking a step back. "Lu Hengyun, I meant what I said about the divorce. Go back and think it over, then send someone to bring me the papers." From now on we'll go our separate ways and wish each other well." As soon as the words left my mouth, Lu Hengyuan's pupils contracted sharply. His face turned ashen and he almost roared, "I won't divorce you." My heart skipped a beat and I looked up at him in surprise. Lu Hengyuan took a step closer, his hands tightening around my shoulders until they hurt. His voice was filled with panic. "Huan, I know I was wrong this time. I know I hurt you. But I'll make it up to you, I promise. Just give me another chance. You can hit me, scold me, anything you want. But you are not allowed to mention divorce ever again. I will never let you go." He grabbed my hand, forcing it to hit his own chest. But I couldn't tell, was he truly sorry for hurting me? Or was he just afraid to let me leave? Or perhaps he was worried that a divorce would bring shame to the Lu family name. My mind was a jumble of confusion. I closed my eyes and every moment of today played over and over again in my head. Frame by frame, crystal clear. I clenched my fingers tightly, forcing down the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Hyun, please just leave me alone for a while." Lu Hengyun stared at me for a long time, then finally let go of me. "Huan, marriage is not a game. It's a lifelong commitment. I can put up with your anger, I can coax you when you're upset. But if you continue to act like this, I'll have no choice but to go talk to your father about this." The last thread of my patience snapped. My eyes blazed with unshed tears as I shouted, "You have no right to mention my father." At the sound of my words, Lu Hengyuan finally connected the dots, remembering the plain white morning clothes I had been wearing all day. A terrible premonition settled in his heart. Father-in-law. What happened to him? I stared at him fiercely, my voice cracking with tears. "My father is dead. He was worried sick about me until his last breath. I wrote you so many letters. I waited for you day after day. But where were you? What were you doing while I was mourning my father? You married another woman behind my back. You spread rumors that I was gravely ill. Lu Hengyuan, did you study all those Confucian classics just to spit on their teachings?" His eyes widened in utter shock, his face pale with disbelief. "What? Father-in-law? How is that possible?" Lu Hengyuan looked at me with overwhelming heartache, gently wiping away my tears with his thumb. Huan, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I'm a monster. Don't cry anymore. You still have me. I'll always be by your side." He pulled me tightly into his arms. During those endless days of waiting, I had longed for this broad, reassuring embrace every single night. I had waited and waited, only to be met with empty promises and betrayal. Now that I had it again, something felt different. It was too late. No matter how hard Lu Hengyuan pleaded, I refused to go back to the mansion with him. "Huan, we've shared so many happy memories together. Can you really bear to throw them all away?" I turned my head away, refusing to look at him. He didn't get angry, continuing to plead softly. "Even though I married Mistress Lin, she will always be my sister-in-law. I will never have any improper thoughts about her. Never. My promise to you is still valid. Always." With that, Lu Hengyuan looked at me deeply, his eyes filled with pain. "Huan, I'll give you time to calm down. I'll come to pick you up in 3 days. I'll come personally. I hope we can still go back to the way we were. I hope we can still be happy together." After he left, I was too upset to sleep, lying awake until dawn broke. The next morning, Ling Long brought me breakfast. I knew at a glance that it had been arranged by Lu Hengyuan. Because this congee, the special congee he had devised just for my fragile health, was unlike any other in the world. But since he had been promoted, he had rarely cooked for me himself. My eyes flickered. I picked up the spoon and took a small sip. The congee tasted just as it always had, but my state of mind was worlds apart from before. I pushed the bowl away, unable to take another bite. Though Lu Hengyuan never appeared in person, he sent me letters every single day. It reminded me of the time when our love had been opposed by our families, and he had done the same thing to reassure me. The letters were filled with trivial matters, but they always ended with 1 or 2 lines of sweet nothings that made my cheeks burn. Now that he was using the same old tricks, I couldn't help but think of the past. I knew I still hadn't let him go, and my heart stirred with conflicting emotions. Yet the fact that he had married another woman behind my back lingered like a thorn in my throat, impossible to spit out, impossible to swallow. At times like these, I missed my parents and my elder brother more than ever. Once, they had always stood in front of me, shielding me from all troubles. But now my parents were gone and my elder brother was struggling to hold things together on his own. I realized just how useless I was. On his deathbed, father's cloudy eyes had been filled with tears. He had clung to his last breath, weakly grasping my hand. Juaner, from now on, father won't be here to protect you when you throw tantrums. You must live a good life. No matter what happens, don't act on impulse. Father had worried about me all his life. Now it was time for me to grow up, to learn to take responsibility for my own choices. When Lu Hengyuan came again, he was not alone. Mistress Lin was with him. Perhaps because she had found a new protector, her face was no longer as haggard as it had been after her husband's death. Ling Long stood beside me, her face dark with anger. What is master playing at? Is he not done humiliating our young lady? A flash of displeasure crossed Lu Hengyun's face, but he forced himself to speak patiently. Huan's sister-in-law specially asked to come with me to fetch you back to the mansion today. With that, Mistress Lin stepped forward and took my hand warmly. Sister, I know you've grown estranged from second brother because of me. I've come specially to explain. I only see second brother as a younger brother. There's nothing improper between us. Don't be foolish and break his heart. Then Mistress Lin looked up at Lu Hengyun, her eyes softening. Second brother is kind-hearted. He couldn't bear to see me spend the rest of my life alone, so he gave me a proper status. I've come here personally with all sincerity to take you home. You must give your elder sister face. She smiled at me brightly, but her grip on my hand was tight enough to hurt. I winced in pain and pulled my hand away sharply. She stumbled and fell to the ground as if pushed. Sister-in-law. Lu Hengyuan reacted almost instinctively, rushing to her side and lifting her into his arms. I stared at them in stunned silence. Lu Hengyun shot me a fierce glare, roughly shouldering me aside to lay Mistress Lin down on my bed. The servant girl who had been following them glanced at me before lowering her head. Second brother, I'm fine. You should go comfort sister first. Don't let her misunderstand us again. Let her misunderstand then. Lu Hengyuan snapped, clearly exasperated. We came all this way to fetch her in person, and not only is she ungrateful, she even pushed you on purpose. She's been spoiled rotten by me. Ling Long could no longer hold her tongue. She fell down on her own. Why are you blaming our young lady for it? Lu Hengyuan spun around, his face dark with rage. He backhanded Ling Long so hard she fell to the floor. How dare a lowly servant like you speak out of turn? I watched as blood trickled from the corner of Ling Long's mouth, my voice cold with fury. Lu Hengyun, have you lost your mind? Lu Hengyun looked down at me, his face ashen. You can't even teach your own servants to behave. Then I'll have to teach her what respect means, what propriety is. At that moment, the man before me was no longer the loving husband I had once shared my life with. He looked like a vengeful ghost. And Mistress Lin, sheltered behind him, curled her lips into a smile of triumph. Ling Long was trembling. Or perhaps it was me trembling with rage. In the next instant I stood up and slapped him back as hard as I could, faster than lightning. Lu Hengyuan froze in place, stunned by the blow. My palms stung with a burning pain, but the pain cleared my head completely. From this moment on, this man was no longer someone I could rely on. And I would never shed another tear for him. I returned to the Lu mansion with Lu Hengyuan. That slap seemed to have woken him up too. He followed me like a scolded wife, never leaving my side. As soon as we entered the main hall, mother-in-law was sitting on the main seat, staring at me coldly. We had never gotten along, and now I had no desire to keep up the pretense of civility. I turned to leave. But I had taken only half a step when she shouted after me, Jiang Huan, what are you pulling that face for? You're nothing but the daughter of a merchant. It was the greatest fortune of your life that I let Yuan marry you. What more could you possibly want? You lowly creature, how dare you make my son come and beg you to return home? Who do you think you are? Mother-in-law slammed her cane hard against the floor, her eyes blazing with anger, clearly beside herself with rage. I curled my lips into a sneer. If I'm so unworthy of your son, then why don't you order him to divorce me? I stared at her coldly, not a trace of respect left in my eyes. Mother-in-law choked on her words. You think I wouldn't dare? I glanced at Lu Hengyun, who looked like he wanted to say something but held back. I sneered. I'd welcome it with open arms. Lu Hengyun could no longer hold his tongue. Mother, this is between Huan and me. Please stay out of it, will you? I will not divorce her. Do you understand me? Mother-in-law stamped her foot in frustration, taking 2 steps forward, and then she noticed the mark on Lu Hengyuan's face. Lu Hengyuan turned his head away, avoiding her gaze. In the next second, mother-in-law screamed, "What happened to your face?" Lu Hengyuan saw that he couldn't hide it any longer and said impatiently, "It's nothing. I just tripped and fell." Mother-in-law was far too shrewd to believe such a flimsy excuse. She turned to Mistress Lin, who stood behind her, her face stern. Mistress Lin, who had been silent all this time, glanced at me and shook her head weakly. Mother-in-law looked at me in disbelief. "Did that lowly woman Jiang Huan do this to you?" I nodded calmly, "Yes, I did." "So what?" She raised her cane and swung it at me violently. But someone grabbed my wrist and pulled me roughly behind him. Lu Hengyuan shielded me with his own body. The cane came down hard on his back with a dull thud. Mother-in-law's eyes widened in shock and the cane slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. "You honor." Lu Hengyuan gritted his teeth against the pain, looking back at me. Huan, I will protect you." I stared at him in stunned silence. He pushed me gently. "Go on. Go back to your room. I'll handle this." I walked forward numbly. Before I could get far, I heard mother-in-law's voice ringing out behind me. "What kind of woman raises her hand to hit her husband? This is unnatural. Unheard of. You honor, write her a divorce letter right now. Throw that woman out of the Lu mansion at once." Lu Hengyuan roared in anger. "Mother! I will not divorce her. Do you hear me?" After I fetched a doctor to treat Linglong's injuries and gave her medicine, I instructed her to go and take inventory of my dowry. Linglong hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Miss, I saw everything that happened just now. Master. He still has feelings for you, it seems. Please don't do anything impulsive on my account. Like Master, all this servant wants is for you to be happy." I smiled. This silly girl still thought I had done all that for her sake. "Linglong, you've been by my side since we were children. You of all people should know that I can never tolerate a single speck of dust in my eyes. So leaving is the only way I'll ever be truly happy." Linglong looked relieved for a moment, then frowned again. "But Master. He seems determined not to let you go." I lowered my eyes, thinking carefully. "First, go take care of the errand I gave you. Then find out exactly what happened in the mansion while we were away." A gut feeling told me that there was far more to this than met the eye. Linglong nodded seriously and withdrew. That blow from the cane had left Lu Hengyuan badly injured. Every day, servants would casually mention his condition in front of me as if by accident. I remained unmoved, continuing to flip through the account books. Over the years, to help Lu Hengyuan advance his official career, I had dipped heavily into my own dowry to fund his expenses, both public and private. My elder brother-in-law had excelled in martial arts, while Lu Hengyuan preferred literature. He had always carried the quiet integrity of a scholar about him. When he first entered officialdom, Lu Hengyuan's stubborn honesty had offended many of his colleagues. Mother-in-law had watched in frustration, scolding me for not knowing how to support my husband. Her constant criticism had made me feel guilty. So I had braved the ridicule of the noble ladies of the capital, forcing myself to curry favor with them. Fortunately, all my efforts had paid off. Lu Hengyuan had gradually started receiving more invitations to social events, and his network of connections had grown significantly. But mother-in-law had never once acknowledged my hard work. Instead, she had accused me of hoarding my dowry and ordered my remaining assets to be seized. I had given away what I had willingly, but I would take back everything that had been stolen from me. I was lost in thought when Lu Hengyuan's personal servant came rushing to find me, looking flustered. "Madam, please. You must come see Master. He's been refusing to eat or take his medicine because he hasn't been able to see you. This servant is at his wit's end." The injury was my fault after all, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. As evening fell, I sighed and decided to go see him. But as soon as I reached the door of his room, I heard soft, tender voices coming from inside. "How are you feeling, second brother? I made this chicken soup myself. Is it good?" Lu Hengyuan's voice sounded weak. "It's delicious." "You're too kind, sister-in-law." Mistress Lin set down the soup bowl, her voice tinged with faint grievance. "Second brother, now that I've married you, I'm yours. Can you please stop calling me sister-in-law?" Lu Hengyuan sounded surprised. That would be improper. Mistress Lin pouted playfully. What's improper about it? I know you're afraid Jiang Huan will misunderstand. But we've already consummated our marriage. Continuing to call me sister-in-law would be even more absurd, wouldn't it? I stood rooted to the spot outside the door, my body blending into the shadows as if it would disappear. At her words, Lu Hengyun broke into a fit of violent coughing. Sister-in-law, please don't speak of this again. I was drugged by mother that night. It was never my wish. I married you as she demanded. I beg you bury this secret forever. Jiang Huan must never find out about this. Mistress Lin's voice was filled with loneliness. Why do you insist on this, second brother? You've been injured so badly protecting her, and yet she won't even spare you a glance. He's so cruel. Wouldn't it be better if you divorced her? Then her voice dropped to a whisper, trembling slightly. Do you know that I've loved you for a long time? If Jiang Huan hadn't come along, it should have been me who married you. Sister-in-law, show some decorum. Lu Hengyun cut her off sharply. I have always respected my elder brother, and I have always seen you as my sister-in-law. If it hadn't been for that night of misunderstanding, I would never have. A flurry of flustered sounds erupted. It was as if someone's lips had been silenced, a muffled gasp escaping, followed by the wet sound of lips meeting lips. Mixed within were Lu Hengyuan's soft whimpers, a sign of his wavering resolve. After what felt like an eternity, Mistress Lin's voice rang out, filled with joy. Hengyun, your body doesn't lie. You want me. Lu Hengyun's breath came in heavy pants, his voice strained with embarrassment. I don't. I didn't want to hear another word of what happened next. I had already learned everything I needed to know. The last faint flicker of affection in my heart had been snuffed out completely. I returned to my room and wrote a letter to my elder brother. My family had been making wine for generations, supplying it exclusively to the imperial palace in the early years. The apricot blossom jade dew wine brewed by my father had won the emperor's favor, and he had once granted my father a wish. At the time, my father couldn't think of anything to ask for, so the emperor had given him a jade pendant as a token, a promise that any request made with it in the future would be granted. On the day I got married, my father had given me that jade pendant. I had thought I would never need to use it in my life, so I had asked my elder brother to keep it safe for me. But it seemed my father had been far-sighted after all. 3 days later, a major event shook the Lu mansion. Mistress Lin was with child. Counting back the days, it must have happened that night. It was almost laughable. Lu Hengyuan and I had been married for 4 years, and not a single child had come of it. She had conceived with just one night together. But I was also grateful that I had no children to tie me down. Leaving would be so much easier without any lingering attachments. Mother-in-law was overjoyed when she heard the news, praising Mistress Lin for being so capable of bearing a child. She threw subtle jabs at me, mocking me for being useless. Lu Hengyun tried to defend me several times, but I remained indifferent, not sparing him so much as a glance. He rubbed his nose awkwardly, falling silent. After dinner, as I was returning to my room, Lu Hengyun pulled me behind a rockery and hugged me tightly as if he was terrified of me leaving. Huan, believe it or not, the child in her belly isn't mine. I pushed him away, keeping a distance between us, a bitter smile playing on my lips. Then is it the ghost of your elder brother come back to haunt you? Or perhaps, are you accusing her of being unfaithful? Lu Hengyuan opened his mouth, but no words came out. I stared at him coldly as if I were looking at a complete stranger. Lu Hengyun suddenly pulled me back into his arms, his voice filled with desperate panic. Huan, don't look at me like that. I love you. I really do. I let him hold me, not giving him a single response. Lu Hengyuan, if you truly still love me, then agree to the divorce. He shook his head violently, a hot tear dropping onto the side of my neck. Huan, no divorce. Never a divorce. Seeing that I still showed no reaction, a hint of madness crept into his voice. Huan, you can't go anywhere. You can only stay by my side. His grip was so tight it made it hard for me to breathe. I beat his arms weakly. Let me go. Have you gone mad? For a brief moment, clarity returned to Lu Hengyuan's eyes. He slung me over his shoulder in one swift motion and carried me back to my room. His strength seemed inexplicably greater than before. I struggled, but I couldn't break free. He threw me onto the bed and climbed on top of me, pinning me down. He looked down at me, his eyes dark as night. Juan. Give me a child. Once we have a child, you'll never leave me. I swung my arm, slapping him hard across the face. You shameless bastard. He licked the inside of his cheek, a faint smile tugging at his lips. That's a good one. But let's get down to business first. You can hit me again later. I was trapped beneath him, tears of despair streaming down my face. Suddenly the door was kicked open with a loud crash. Lu Hingyan, you bastard. I'll beat you to death. My elder brother grabbed Lu Hingyan by the back of his collar and hurled him to the threshold, then rushed over and kicked him twice more for good measure. Mother-in-law came running at the sound of the commotion. You reckless madman. Let go of my son at once. My elder brother was still seething with anger. He raised his hand and backhanded her across the face. You old hag. I was just about to come after you and here you are asking for it. Mistress Lin rushed forward, pointing a finger at my elder brother. Do you know who you're hitting? My elder brother let out a cold laugh, then slapped her across the face too. I don't care who I'm hitting. Mistress Lin clutched her stinging cheek, tears welling up in her eyes as she stared at him. My elder brother curled his lip in disdain. What are you looking at? Don't think I won't hit a woman. Anyone who dares to bully my sister will pay for it. In that moment I felt like a happy little girl again, cherished and protected by my parents and brother. My eyes welled up with tears and I burst out crying, Brother. Take me home. My elder brother lifted me into his arms and strode toward the door. Lu Hingyan clung to his legs begging, No. Juan is my wife. She can't leave me. My elder brother kicked him away, reached into his bosom and pulled out an imperial edict, throwing it at Lu Hingyan's feet before walking away without looking back. Lu Hingyan picked it up with trembling hands and unfolded it. Tears streamed down his face instantly. It's over. Everything is over. Mother-in-law didn't understand what was happening. She snatched the edict from his hands and her face broke into a beaming smile. Good news. This is wonderful news. Lu Hingyan went rigid, staring at his mother with a fierce, bitter look in his eyes. Are you satisfied now? I'll never have the woman I love again. I'm living a worse life than death and you're happy about it. Give me back my Juan. Seeing his distress, Mistress Lin hurried forward to comfort him. You still have me. I'll stay with you forever. Before she could finish her sentence, Lu Hingyan shoved her away in disgust, sending her sprawling to the floor. Get out. I don't want anyone but Juan. With that, Lu Hingyan ran out of the mansion, his face covered in bruises and swollen beyond recognition. Mistress Lin's face turned as white as a sheet. A warm trickle of blood slowly spread between her legs. Mother-in-law let out a blood-curdling scream and fainted on the spot. When she woke up, the child was gone. And Lu Hingyan had vanished without a trace. The Lu family's line had been completely severed. From that day on, Mistress Lin knelt in the Buddhist hall every single day, chanting scriptures until her voice went hoarse, consumed by endless regret for what she had done.